everyone, I'm so glad to have you crafting with me today. We are working on part 3 of our Fisherman's Basket art journal, and today's video, seeing as last week's video was a little bit heavy on the maths and the working out, trying to make things all fit together and align, today we are diving in with just some fun. We're going to splosh some paint around, we're going to do some mixed media crafting, so not a lot of actual paper crafting today. It's definitely going to be more on the mixed media side, just to break things up a bit. We're going to add some bling to our cover and some decoration, as well as working predominantly on the bottom flap of our project. So the cover has 2 flaps, a top cover and a bottom cover. I want to add some 3D sort of detailing on the inside bottom cover here, and that will sort of sit up against our cover page, and then in part 4 we will be finishing the journal with some other papery items. But today I think there's more than enough to keep us busy for part 3, so let's get started. Alright, so the first step of today is I want to add a little bit of dry brushing to these fabric details on the cover. And I think the way I'm going to do that is just by mixing up some sort of random brown. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. So we're just going to get our brush like this. This is a stippling brush. Use whatever you've got. So that's actually coming out almost quite similar to the colour that's on there already. But let's just have a go, hey? We're not going to know until we try. So, oh, here we go. Oh, actually, I could probably try under here, couldn't I? That's a cheeky little trick. So, I'll just see. And we want it to look not uniform, if that makes sense. So we want this to look like it's happened over many years. So no rhyme or reason to the disbursement of the paint. Okay, that's pretty good. Maybe just a smidgen more black in there. And the dry brushing itself is just sort of removing a lot of the pigment off your brush before adding it to the project. Because this is fabric, it is going to sink in anyway, right? Actually, do I have enough dry? Oh, it's dry enough. It's dry enough that I can sort of rough it up even more on the actual faux wicker. As I said in part 2, you don't want it to look, well, in my particular project, I don't want it to look super, super clean. You know, I want it to look sort of years old, like it's been on many travels. This is where we got to. I cleaned my desk, I washed my hands because I had paint all over them, but I love that. It's like we're making art, right? Love it. Love getting a messy desk. All right, so this is where we got to. As you can see, it's looking nice and beat up. Could do with more beating up, to be honest, so I may do some more later. But that's the process, right? That's the process of getting to this stage. I'm sure this situation feels familiar to a lot of like mixed media crafters, but I have like some little areas in a couple of my craft boxes that are kind of like this, like where that might be useful actually, some like random mixed media bits, mostly metal that I was looking through for this project, like just some little metal bits of random things. Now, obviously out of context, this is not fishing gear, right? None of this is fishing gear. But in context, you could kind of see how this feels like it belongs in this project. So that's what we're kind of going for. Don't think I need the little bunny things. And I don't think I need those for now. But what I would like to do is just make up some things that feel fisherman-y for the basket using just some of this random stuff. I would also like to make some paper beads. I've also got here the off-cut little tails from our pages, so I think that will also be good. I've also got some packets of faux fur. I think this will also be good because I do want to make 2 little flies. We're going to use this and I think some fur to make some flies. I want to bind these into some of them into the bottom flap of our journal. So I've got some string and some cotton, and some fabric, which we'll talk about later. But I think what we've got here is what we're kind of going to be working with. So just some really random bits. I was mending a blind on the weekend, an old vintage blind, and on it was some of this string, and I thought that kind of looks like fisherman's string. So I'm just going to start chipping away at these, and I hope that that's fun. But I think maybe like a little bundle of rope or string would be cute in the basket. So we'll tie that off, and I don't know any proper knots, but I think that kind of works in the context of what we're doing. And then maybe can we integrate some of these in there? These old rusty, they're not jump rings as such, but all right, I scuffed up my nails pretty good there, but I got them free. So we'll just sort of tie this back in on itself. Hopefully that will stay put. Like so. And then maybe we can just like feed these on. And it doesn't have to make perfect sense, right? It doesn't. I know that our brains think like, oh, it has to be all like fishing and you have to know about, no, you don't. Like, just make something that looks cute. So can go like that. And then maybe like just some, what else can we put on there? Like some wire or something. Just trying to see what else we've got. Maybe some of this little, just some cotton, just to sort of hold everything nice and tight. And just tie it on, We want this to look kind of, just kind of haphazard. There we go. It's nothing. It's just a bit of bundled up string, some old rusty jump rings, and some string, like cotton, wrapped around it. And out of context, nothing. In context, fishing. Fishing ephemera. Now, when I was looking through, I did notice that this particular piece, which I found in a car park one day while I was at the marina, fits perfectly onto the edge here. So I think we might be able to use this as what we fasten everything to the corner of the basket with. I think that works, right? That's cute. So we'll take that off the table. That can just stay over there till we glue it on. Now, same with these. I just picked them up from, I think they're supposed to be, I think this one's like a hair thing, like that you use to hold your hair in place maybe. And then this, I think, is something that goes onto a spinning loop, maybe. And I just always look for these at the op shop in the weird little, like, you know, they have those weird little sections. Just weird little sections. Because I mean, I probably could maybe have a go at sit down and carving something like this, but I'm not going to do that. So it's good to find things that just look mismatched and old. So I know you won't be able to copy, oh, what have I done there? I know you won't be able to copy this exactly because it will depend on, you know, what you have available. But the point I'm trying to make, it's a very old thread. The point I'm trying to make is just use what you've got and look at it in the context of how can I make this look more like fishing, or, you know, whatever you're working on. How can I make this remind me of fishing tackle? And this is like obviously purely decorative, like, okay. And then for this one, got some more just hand spun string here, and just going to wrap this up. And of course, if you have some actual fishing like things that you can use, like actual tackle, which I think these are actual tackle, these little sinkers, you know, you could just add those. Or anything you've got really that you enjoy. And then I might just add, a bit of what can I add onto there? Maybe a little bit of the faux fur. Does it make any sense? No. But does it have to? No. It doesn't. It doesn't. Let me just take this little bit here. But it kind of feels like it does make sense somehow. I don't know. Making fake tackle. I love it. Okay, cool. My gosh, this weather is out of control today. I don't know if you can see how the sun is just going in and out of from behind clouds. And the wind is crazy. Like, we're due for a storm here on the Gold Coast, and it just won't come. It won't come. It keeps trying, but it won't come. Alright, I'm going to salvage this bit of wire off this little thing because it feels like it needs a bit of wire. And then I might just add this little charm. Not charm, I don't know. What are you? A bead? And it might fall off, but I don't think so. Okay. Alright, I've grabbed my little jar of misc string offcuts here and found some bits that might be good to make up another couple of little rope bundles, because remember we're, you know, maybe thinking that this is like for a fishing vessel. So maybe, oh, it's quite thick, that one. Maybe we could do like tie off like a, oh my goodness, I don't know how to tie these types of fishing knots. You know, the ones that look like, they look like this. I don't know how to tie this. Like this, yes. I don't know. It just has to look the part, remember? Okay, something like that. I kind of wish that rusty side was on the front, but that's okay. So I'll tie that off. See how it's sort of starting to look a little bit like a collection of like mariner's items, you know? Some of this maybe in like a, what? I mean, this is kind of the wrong kind of string, but it looks cute. Alright, I found some little, these are some of the scrappies from last week. So that will work, I think. So just trim this down. Oop. Let's see, this might be a disaster, but we shall see. So remember, this was just double-sided tape stuck onto some fabric. Yes, this is what I wanted, like some little fasteners to go around. Let's try and keep it all nice and tucked in. Cute. Oh, I love this. I love it. It's looking so fun. So these are mostly going to be what we're going to sit on the inside flap here, on the bottom flap. So we may almost have enough for that. So if you can imagine, it opens up and you can see some of this sort of faux tackle. I'm looking at this upside down, but you're getting the full view. So maybe that goes there, that there, that there. Oh my gosh, so cute. So maybe we just need one, maybe two small things. Two small things. And again, it doesn't, I can't stress this enough. it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you use. Like, just use what you've got. Use what you've got. Now, I do have these little bits of shell and some of these little faux, I don't know what they're made out of. I think maybe resin or something. Like faux resin, little barnacle things. Do we think maybe something like that might work? As one of our small, you know, maybe the fisherman has been out to sea. See, so it's just some of these, and I don't remember where these came from. It would have just been like, again, in some sort of little mixed media pack from, these did come out of that same big button barrel that I found, that I grabbed from the op shop. So I think we might do something with those. And then that's going to add just some like texture and something, a little bit something different in here in this mixed bundle. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just making things up as I go, enjoying the process and finding means to an end for each of these little circumstances of, okay, what can I attach these to sort of make them work in this little spot, you know, that type of thing. And not overthinking the process. That's also very important. Like, don't overthink it, because if you overthink it, you're going to have, it may just take a little bit of the fun out of it. So we absolutely don't want that. So earlier on in preparation for this project, and also to sort of get an idea of what I can use for this, and then what I also wanted to add to the journal in the future, I went through all of my fishing books and pulled out some pages that I think might be useful. And I've just had a thought that maybe for this bottom section, they're going to look a little bit glossy on camera, sorry. But maybe something like this, like these little shells. Maybe we can use like picture of, I thought there was another picture of a shell here. Here, this little one. Are they might be a bit too, but we could use like, maybe we could use that mussel and maybe, yeah, so I might take those two. I hope you're enjoying this, something a little bit different and not all just paper crafting, but also seeing a little bit of my own process in coming up with some mixed media items and adding value to your journal in terms of like artistic embellishments that, you know, not everybody has like a big crafty stash. I'm well aware of that, but it is fun to sort of think about, well, what can I add to any journal? And so the idea is not necessarily for you to mimic exactly what's here today, but take some of the little nuggets of inspiration or ideas and then apply them to whatever project you're working on, in a hope that would then inspire you to maybe try something different. Because, you know, you never know, you might end up picking up a technique or a idea that you then use in many different journals, not just one journal, but many. So that's sort of the idea behind just showing you some of my little processes here in embellishing this journal. And obviously, as I said in the intro, that today is about just having fun and doing something a little bit different, where we're just playing and making things up as we go and not being too weighed down in details and maths and getting everything to be linear and perfect, because that was definitely last week's video. Last week's video had a lot of maths, but this week's video is very much about having fun. So I hope you are having fun. That's very important. Alright, so we're just going to fussy cut this little mussel, and maybe so maybe we can add those to the mussel, and then they don't really feel quite right. They feel like they're their own little thing. So first thing we're going to do, this is just a bit of the offcut scrap from when we made our folder last week. So we're just going to glue this down. I think a glue stick. Oh, do I want to use wet glue? Maybe I'll use a wet glue, and then we can carry that through to the to adhering these little mollusk situations. So very much a mixed media project today. So this is just my trusty PVA that I've had in my stash. I've got in my stash at the moment. So we're just going to glue it down, and coating it will be good for a number of reasons. One, it's going to make it nice and strong, and two, it means that hopefully we can stick some of these on. Let's stick to that, maybe a little bit more, but the more you add, the more that this will coat up nicely. And that is something I've done in many projects, where you just add like a nice thick layer of glue, and then it really transforms paper into this thick vinyl feeling item. So we'll slop the glue on there. Maybe smaller ones might be better for this. I'll just add that in. And this is going to be one of those slow reveal moments, I guess, because we're not going to see really what this is going to look like until it's all done, until it's all dry. So I'll just integrate those. I don't know if you can tell that I'm having the best time. Okay, we'll just use that glue to add texture to the cardboard. Don't need that one. I think 4 is enough. So that's going to be our next piece of ephemera. And then, because that's actually bigger than what I planned, like I needed 2 small things, I might just save these and actually stitch them into the little lining that I want to adhere all of these to. So that will be that. So I'll just move those all to the side now, because that's all of the little interactive bits and pieces that we're going to make for the inside cover. For the outside cover, I'm thinking I want 2 little dangly fishing flies, maybe some sinkers and some floats, just some other bits and pieces that feel fishing-y to me. We used to go fishing at the creek when I was young, and that is kind of what has inspired me in the first place, apart from the beautiful illustrations, obviously, because the whole point of this project was to showcase those really beautiful illustrations from the fishing books that I picked up. But I also wanted to sort of make it feel a bit personal to me with my family fishing adventures. So from back in many days gone by. So I'm just going to take all these little tails and line them up. And if you're familiar with tassel making, we're kind of going to make a little tassel, and that'll just be a way to sort of tie in the pages from the inside to the cover, and then also obviously just use up all this beautiful blue thread because it's just such a gorgeous color, and it really will, I think it really will pop once we get it on the cover. I've done my little, got my little tails all lined up, and I think I probably will trim them. I think this is probably going to be a bit too long, even in half, but let's just get started. So the first thing we're going to do is lay our cotton out and give ourselves enough to tie a good knot. So we're going to go about halfway down. So this is how you make a little tassel. So you could use this in any project. You don't have to be making a fishing fly to use this. So tie that into a knot, or the way that you would normally tie a knot. So what was that? That was left over, that was right over left. So now we're going to go left over right. I'm doing this backwards, bear with me. And then may as well leave that in there, that's pretty. And then we're going to fold that over, and then we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to tie a little knot, except we're going to, and I'll try and get those brown ends all on the same side if I can. So we're going to tie this off this way. So right over left. Oh dear. Right over left. Keeps getting away from me. There we go. Right over left. And then left over right. That should give you a nice knot there. Okay. Before we move on, I'm going to add a little jump ring, and that's going to help us actually adhere everything at the end. So I'll take out a couple of these. I think these are just like a kind of dark bronzy color, because I'll probably use a few of those today, and they're very soft. I think I should be, yes, I can just use my finger to do that. And we're just going to loop that through where our tie was, roughly. Again, we're not aiming for perfection here, just want it to work. So then I've got this string that I used last week. It's kind of like it's either a vinyl or a leather or something, I don't know. I got it from the op shop, and it was perfect for, well, the other roll, I got 2 rolls. They were perfect for last week's video, last week, where we binded it into our handle, and also the inside little bit. So we're just going to wrap that in on itself. It's very thin, so it's probably not going to, that's okay. Now this is not a proper fly. I don't know if that goes without saying. I love watching videos online of people making lures and flies. They're so fascinating to watch. Now hopefully can... Oh, did I cut it too short? I hope not. Here we go. We're just going to make it work here. Feed that through. We've also got some little clear plastic beads and some like longer grey ones. So they might be cute to add as well. Alright, so I've got some jewellery making bits out here, and who knew that was where today was going to go? But that's the point, right? Like, just enjoy the supplies. So I think I've got some head pins. Hopefully these fit. Yes, they do. Wonderful. So I've just got like some longer beads, and that can we can attach those as part of the fly. So we'll add like 3 of those, and then we're just using our pliers, we're just going to bend that over. So very, very untechnical. Hopefully I don't snap that. Oh. Okay. So just going to bend that over. I'll make a couple of those. All right, so I've got these little black jump rings, and I might just sort of coerce them through here like this, and then we can just attach our little shiny dangles down the bottom here. Then they're sort of sitting close to the bottom, which is what I want. Maybe actually just coerce this in. Okay, great. Okay, so we've added a little bit of shiny. We'll put that one to the side. I'm going to add these little beads, and I'm going to add that little bead as the eye at this stage. That's the plan. All right, the second fly. I'm going to use some of this faux fur. Because to me, this just looks like a fishing fly. Do I have any little scrappies that are half used? No. All right, here we go. We're going to cut logic tells me this should have 2 ends. Here we go. So I'm going to cut and these are just little offcuts. A lot of people who use this type of thing to make costumes or cosplay or other art will end up with scraps, and you can pick up scrap bags on Etsy. I did get all of my offcut scraps from Etsy, and I don't need large portions of this type of thing anymore. I used to when I was doing sewing, but now I just need a little bit. So it's good to look around and see if you can find someone selling just little bits and pieces, and normally they're quite affordable. It's just a way for them to de-stash what they have, and also, you know, help make a little bit of money on the side for you know, these types of crafting items are extremely expensive, so it's a good way for them to earn back a little bit of money on that. So look around, help out your fellow crafter before buying anything new, and then we'll add a little bit of this just to the top. Something like that. And I'm just going to pull out I'm just going to use a needle and thread, I think, for this one. All right, so I've just got some very basic brown cotton here. It's just from the supermarket, nothing fancy. And then going to just tie this off and do a running stitch. Shouldn't need too much. We've got a little square here, a rectangle I should say, and all we're going to do is just running stitch those two edges together. Oops. And then what I might do is I might actually attach the jump ring while we're here. So just sort of slide it into that little gap at the top. And then just going to feed our needle through the jump ring and the fur at the top. And that's going to just hold that in place. And then we might go the opposite, and that'll help us sort of hide this little join here. So we'll just wrap the fur around, and then we'll just again running stitch this one, running stitch this little bit of extra fur through the top. And so I'll just do that all the way around, and then we can sort of feed our needle down. This is not essential, that will stay in place, but I'm just going to lightly running stitch, sort of tack stitch the bottom. You always get a little bit of where we did the trim, you know, like as in actually cutting it and trimming it, the little bits of fur will sort of come off, but that's part of the deal of faux fur. Look how cute that looks. That's cute. Okay, and look how cute they look together so far. We're doing it, we're doing it. So we can hopefully just tie that onto the jump ring. Yes, and then start wrapping from the top. Oh my goodness, how cute is that? Oh, adorable, adorable. So trim that off, and then again feed it back in on itself, and we'll tie a knot. We'll try to tie a knot. Pull that nice and tight. And I also decided against adding anything else, any other little beads or anything, because I really don't want to use hot glue if I can avoid it. So I'll just give that a little trim, and then that can be our two flies. Now next I want to add some I want to make some little, I don't know what this is called. Lure? No, I don't know. I don't know what it's called. But I want to paint it like half and half. So I've got my skewer here. And that'll just sort of give me something to sort of work on here. Can I fit this? Yeah, perfect. So I've just got a warm white paint here, and we're just going to get our pencil. Actually, let's be reasonable. We're just going to paint like a little, draw a little line, guideline here, sort of like halfway. These beads fit through these skewer. That worked out well, didn't it? So, we could just leave them like that. The natural wood is really cute. But I love the vintage looking lures where they've got like the red and white. They're just very nostalgic for me. Okay, so we'll set those aside now to dry. Next, I've grabbed this bag of corks, again just from the op shop. Corks are kind of integral to my decorating this project because the fishing that we used to do as kids, we would use a cork float. So I really wanted to add some cork. Now I should be okay just to use a butter knife to cut this. I sort of want two separate rounds of cork. I would love to be able to put the whole thing in, but I think it's a bit too big. So I'm just going to make like a little homage to the cork by cutting two little circles. Sorry, the camera's going to shake horrifically while I do this. But I'm going to cut this down. Okay. All right, I'm just going to lightly sand them off. Just got a metal skewer and I'm just going to bore a hole through. I'm thinking maybe this might be the bit to use for these. Shall see. Or something similar anyway. Something similar. Because I don't want them to hang this way. I want them to hang like this way. So I think we could fashion like a little situation like so. So just push it down and then get our, I've got to be careful because I don't want to bore through the cork. It's very soft. So just gently. Okay. And then I've got to find some more wire for the other one. Twist that off. And then when I cut this wire, I might just give myself plenty of room with which to hang it because I don't know how this is all going to hang just yet. So, and then we might even be able to attach this one to this one and feed it through. Beautiful, love it. So sort of up here. And then maybe we could even add I found this bit of funny metal in that useful box, and it reminded me of a bit of fishing kit, even though it's not. It's, I don't know what it is, something, but we could maybe like feed this through. I know that this kind of tutorial can be a little bit frustrating because it's like, you know, I don't have all of these exact bits, but what I would like is for you to not maybe look at this as a tutorial and look at this as a way, as an inspiration guide. So like, take this away, see what you've got, and see if you can make something not even similar, but just, you know, look at your materials and see if they speak to you in a different way. And see what comes from that conversation, you know. And if you don't have materials like this, mixed media materials, maybe you know someone who does. Ask next door, see what, you know, maybe your brother has something, or maybe your, you know, maybe your sister's a mechanic and has some bits and pieces that she uses, and just sort of see what's around that you do have access to, and then call up the op shops and ask them if they have anything sort of kicking around that's, you know, maybe not saleable because it's, you know, bits of old tat. So, you know, this is all just made from basically old tat, and that's the technical term for it. So the last thing I want to do, I think, is in creating some faux tackle for the outside of our basket, is to make some paper beads to go with our little sinkers here, maybe this little blind bit off the blind, and our other little beads here. And I've got this image, it was just from a magazine with matte paper. And I want to make the paper beads out of this sort of brown part of this image. The magazine was Portraits magazine, an old one. Oh no, hang on. It was this one. Is that the right size? Yes, it was this one. Tiny Atlas Volume 1. So I had a flick through there because I knew it had some nice matte paper. We're going to make some paper beads. Now, I have not made paper beads in a very, very long time. Okay, I want to preface it with that. So we're going to see how we go. It's going to be an experiment of fun for you and I both. So we're going to just, firstly I need a straight edge here. So we're going to cut that down. And then obviously you can just do this with some scissors. And I want to make one that's sort of quite a long skinny one, and then one that's more sort of akin to a rounder one. So I think from memory, the way that you do that is we'll have, and this one's, if we make the longer one this side, we can actually use and salvage more of this really beautiful design in this paper, this sort of marbling, I guess, in the wallpaper. So we're just gonna create a triangle, and I know it's not an equal triangle. So we'll see how that goes. But again, I'm not an expert. It's been a hot minute since I've made one. Will that work? It'll be slightly off center, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm okay with that. So this is not going to be a paper bead tutorial as such. Oh, maybe I could get 3 out of this. I'm going to try. All right, so these are going to be slightly less of a triangle. And this will be a way of just adding in some more texture, and I reckon I can get 3 different sizes. What a turn of good fortune. I love that. Okay, so they're that's the base of our 3 beads, and I'm going to, for the moment, take my skewer. That paint is dry, and we're going to just sort of roll it over to start. I'm sure there's like fancy tools you can get for this. There's no way I was going to do that just for this project. So let's make it nice and tight as we go. And we're just going to roll. But you do you. If you want to invest in your craft. So it's definitely, we definitely need to start again. Here we go. But it might be the way that I've cut it. Here we go, try again. Because it wasn't a perfect triangle. Oh no, there we go. So you want it sort of be reasonably in the middle as you roll it around the skewer. And then after a certain point, I'm just going to get my glue. I mean, I think this is the way you do it from memory. It's, as I said, it's been a minute. And we're just going to add a little bit of glue, just a little bit. All the way to the tip there. And then I'm just going to work that glue around the bead. Messy, messy. That's the theme of the day. Theme of the day is mess. Okay. So that's our first bead. And I think it should be okay. Just like that. Now, second one, same thing. So we're going to put it on the skewer. Get a nice bit of tension going, roll it on, make sure that you're sort of rolling it in a, kind of coerce that smaller tip. So I didn't mention that we're starting at the thicker end and working up to the thinner end. Add some glue, just a smidgen. And I'm using a wet glue for this because I just trust it more than the dry glue for this particular project. And it just adds another texture, you know, right, to what we're doing. And then just roll your finger around the glue. And as I say, I'm sure there's a very fancy technical lovely way of doing this. But look how cute they're gonna look integrated with these. Yes, I love that. All right, I'm gonna do this last one the same and I'll check back in. All right, so there they are. I'm going to leave them to dry. And obviously these are not super, super strong. You know, they're just little paper, bits of rolled up paper. So they're not going to be super, super strong for, you know, I recommend watching a fancy tutorial if you want something that's like wearable or whatever, but for the purposes of today's project, they will work just fine. Now I'm trying to decide whether or not to paint the second side of our beads in the red like I had planned. Let's see what it would look like. I've got two different reds here. It's quite bright. Oh, I do love it. I mean, my soul, my neutral loving soul is saying leave them neutral, but then also I feel like it would just add such a fabulous pop. I've also got this darker red, which I feel like would be more natural to real life, but I feel like, yeah, I feel like this sort of quite bright, almost orange red is going to contrast really nicely with this blue. So I think maybe what we'll do is they do need a second coat on the white, so I might get the I'll get the red part painted first, and I might sit just so that I can get a bit more control here. The skewer thing was good, but I'm thinking that this needs a bit more control. I think these are definitely going to need a second coat because it's like an unprimed surface, so tell me down in the comments, would you have a go at doing something like this, adding maybe some hand painted beads or some handmade beads? Do you have any questions? Can I help with anything? Some advice? I don't know. I'm certainly no expert in paper beads, that's for sure. I just love having fun. So that's that. But I do try. All right, I'm going to let those dry. Our beads are all dry. I'm just going to use my knife to tidy up the ends. Okay. And they're nice and hard. You can hear they're nice and solid. So I think these are pretty much ready to go. I gave these 2 coats of paint and then took them outside and gave them a little spray with some clear spray paint, and that should stop them from scratching. So I think we are pretty much ready to assemble the last little dangle. So I'm probably just going to use this wire again, I think. Let's not overcomplicate things, shall we? So we're going to finish it. I think we'll put the sinkers at the bottom. And that can sort of act as our, just have one thing in your hand at a time maybe. Oh dear. So that can be our little sort of stopper at the end. And then we're going to need maybe how much? Maybe that much. So let's just give ourselves plenty to work with. So maybe we'll go something like this. And then our handmade paper beads. No, they just, I feel like they maybe just look a bit too new. Okay, I think I like it. Maybe, I'm thinking maybe, should we add, so we could just like feed this through, and then that would sort of act as like a stopper to sort of hold everything in place. Does that work? Did I cut enough wire for it, is the question. It does just feel like it's gonna flippy flappy all over the place if I don't put something there. Okay, that kind of works. Yep. And then we can tie it off, and everything should stay all tucked in. So we've got 2 bundles of tackle. We've got the bits to hang as dangles and bling for the outside cover, and then we've got little bits that are going to sit on the inside cover. Now I do want to decorate this top bit with some 2D visual images, but because it sits on top of this cover, it really does need everything to be flat. So we're going to use this bottom bit to house all of these pretty little pieces of handmade tackle that we've made today. And we're going to do that by, I think, using some of this scrap. And these are just liners from baskets that I've bought from the op shop. And I didn't need the liners. I prefer my baskets without liners, but the liners have this beautiful textured fabric, and I was thinking that maybe we could scavenge some of it for our basket. So I'm thinking that it might, oh, look at that. It's like the perfect size. Okay, great. So I'm going to just unpick or trim whichever's going to work. I might need to just trim it down because I think it's just going to be a raw edge anyway if I unpick it. So we're just going to cut along that edge. Let's just see where we're at here. So we tuck the raw edge up into the corner and keep as much of it down here as possible. So okay, and then we've got all our our bits here. So I can't remember how I laid them out, but we've got to remember about the join. So obviously we can't have, it's kind of got to be mostly just in this little panel. In fact, I might just shred that off there because there's no room on this side of the folder. All the room is on this panel down the bottom here. So there we go, like this, or we could even do them toes to nose. And then we've got our beautiful little rope bundles. Maybe this one goes this way so that we can get that, the full effect of that knot being this way. And then my little oyster still hasn't fully dried yet, but we can still work with it. And if you're making something like this, you might be able to, if you have like a special shell or some beach, what is it called? Like flotsam? Some beach flotsam from a vacation, or you know, maybe a souvenir that someone's brought back for you from somewhere special. Something like that would be beautiful to add into a piece like this. So we could add that. Where's our join line here? So maybe we do this, and then we can put our little bits of cowrie or whatever they are there. All right, what do we think? What do we think? I love it. I love it. Just try and replicate this. And then I am just going to, I've decided I am just going to trim this down just above that line there, the guideline, because then hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get a nice little raggedy edge, frayed edge. Love it. Make sure, I mean, ironing it would make it just that little bit easier, but I just really want it to have a rough kind of used, worn in look to it. Now, to attach all of these, we're going to grab our needle and thread again, and I'm actually going to try and use a larger needle that's just going to help me keep everything under control with my sewing, because obviously it's going to be a little bit fiddly, and you know, spoiler alert, it's probably going to be a little bit fiddly to do this. We've got some cotton. I've also got some string on hand just to see if that's maybe an option for some of these items rather than the cotton. But they're quite small and delicate pieces, so I think anything too thick is kind of going to overwhelm the item. But in saying that, I have picked out a couple of different browns. I've got like a chocolate brown, and then more of like a fawny grey. Oh no, I wouldn't say it's greyish. I'd say this is greyish. This is more of like a fawn colour. So we're just going to alternate between those depending on which item. So we're going to start here, and this one's actually probably going to be quite good to start with because it's got, if I can find the hole there, because it's got these little holes here I can use to sort of attach it, which is a bit lucky, isn't it? So we're just going to attach them, sew them on. So just some casual sewing in the afternoon. Who knew that this is where we would be? I love that. Okay, beautiful. And now we'll just tie off. Maybe here, maybe here. We don't want it to pull too much, because obviously this fabric needs to be flat enough that it's going to, you know, come down and grab. When we add the sticky layer, it's going to come down and grab our page here. So it needs to sort of still be reasonably flat as we add. So like just evening everything out, getting that warp out of it as you go, stretching and manipulating so that it still stays flat and keeps its shape as well. It's funny how all of a sudden these items that are like hair accessories, all of a sudden kind of look like vintage tackle. I don't know how it works, but it just does. It just does. Okay, and then just again give her a wiggle and a jiggle. Right, left, up, down, in, out, all around, just to make sure it's all flat. See, so by doing that each time, it's going to remain flat. Okay, I'm going to get all of these stitched on in the order that we had them, or roughly, and see how we go. And I'm going to use a combination of these two threads, and I'll come back to you when I'm finished all of that. Okay, looking good. They're all stitched on. Now, for the shell and these other little shells, I did actually attach them with some of our bare double-sided tape from last week's video, the best two-way tape, and then I just sort of stitched over them. So that will sort of hold them in place while we, and the stitching will just be for kind of decoration. Now, to finish this panel off before we stick it on, I'm going to do a running stitch, a back stitch around it in the dark brown thread, and my hope is that that will sort of make it look finished and intentional and sort of part of the basket, but also it will kind of keep this weave in place, hopefully. We'll see. Oh, I keep catching the corner there. Move over. So it'll just put like a nice little border on it. It'll add some character. I'm not going to be too fussy about my stitches. I'm just going to keep them, you know, kind of rustic looking. See, just sort of something like this. And then not going to be even. Absolutely not. So if you've never done a back stitch before, you're just basically feeding the thread back in on itself and pulling it through. So we've got our tail, we're going to take our needle back in on itself and work backwards and then push it through to the front, leaving a bit of gap for the next stitch. So hopefully not too intimidating there, but I think it will just add that little last bit of character that this panel needs to look finished and intentional. So we're nearly there at the end. And then once I've tied this off, I'm going to use the two-way tape again, the MVP of this project, to stick this down. Could use glue, but we've established that the tape can hold fabric, because we did all of this in the tape in part 2. So I think it will work. We can go here and we can just sort of tidy it up as we go. It doesn't matter if the whole edge isn't stuck down. In fact, I think I'd prefer it that way. But we're just going to gently work it on and sort of stick it as we go. And then trim. And yes, I did have an epic scissor cleaning session after last week. So the scissors are all ready to be sticky again once more. So just stick that all down. And then we might do the bottom next, just so that we've got those major bases covered. And this will also help, I think, with keeping all the little ends of our threads held in place as well. So down. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfectly aligned. Oh, bit of end there. Oh, I've made a little. Oof. Make sure it's all straight and that there's no kinks in the thread, in the fabric. And you can sort of see how leaving that little bit of leaving it unironed has helped in keeping it looking a little bit buckled, which I like. Okay, this might be better if I peel this, though. It's going to be a little bit fussy, guys, a little bit fussy, but we will make it. I might regret that. But if we just do one side and line it up like this, because hopefully it shouldn't stick to this, but that might be optimal. That might be optimistically thinking. We'll trim it down. And then work it on. So we're going to go this way. So we've actually gone from bottom to top. So good. And it just needs to hold it in place, right? Gravity will sort of do the rest. And hopefully over time everything remains sticky and remains all tucked in and nice. And then, so we've basically just made a huge 3D sticker. Get it all neat and centered, and you kind of get one go at that. So we're going to work in all the major areas, trying to cover the edge here if possible, and make sure that we're not invading that join with any ephemera, like any of these large pieces that we've added. Maybe that will help. Back end of a pencil, love it. And that'll just get all that adhered. And then we'll just rework that crease in. Oh my goodness. Oh, I just love it. I just love it. I just love it. But now when she opens, she's going to open and you're going to see, sorry, I did that sort of further down. So she's going to open and you're going to see all of your treasures you've collected from your last voyage. Maybe some shells you found on a beach. Maybe some rope samples that you used. Just beautiful. Okay, next we're going to add our exterior tackle. All right, so this is our little sinker that we're using, or it's a weight or fishing apparatus of some kind. As I said, I found it in a car park. So we're going to attach this here, I think. It's got this hole here, and that's what I think we're going to get all of this on with. Let's not overcomplicate it, shall we? So maybe we, but they don't all need to be on individual jump rings. Maybe we do, so I'll just need to, and I'm going to use my pliers for this because this wire is so sharp. So we'll just bring this around and we're going to tie it off. And I would be very surprised if this came undone. So I think that will be fine. So we'll just give it a, we'll just cut it off here. Actually, we'll cut it off down here just so that we can poke this little tail maybe inside, so there's no sharp bits sticking out. And I'm really more than happy for this to look kind of worn in, you know. So maybe we do those two together. Those two together. And then we can attach them just at the front there, I think. I think this will work. And then maybe we'll just bring the jump ring in back on itself a little just to make sure it's got some strength. Probably should have done that the other way around, maybe. Hang on, so we'll just keep everything as is, but we'll put the little sparkly dangle at the front. Just our little fly that we made from tails from our pages. Okay, we're getting somewhere. And then this one, we'll do the same thing. So we'll put this on the back side, on this secondary loop. So it's going to sit this way, and then like this. So sort of looking at it like this. So we've got our paper beads, our little corks, which are very nostalgic for me when it comes to fishing, and then our two little flies. I might put some well bond on it, and then that would have to sit overnight. So we'll do that. And I don't mind if it kind of oozes out the side, just to sort of solidify it, you know. Alright, so we're just going to tidy up some of this ooze here. Get that all tidy. Yes, that's much better. And then what we may do, which actually would add just even more detail, is we could feed some strapping through this bit around onto the handle, and that would sort of reinforce it, but you know, but look really cool as well. And I'll get my hole punch here, and if I had an eyelet punch, oh, I would add eyelets, but I don't have eyelets, an eyelet punch, but maybe in the future I feel like I could add them. We could do like a little tie, and then we can go like a crisscross through here, like so. I don't want to put too much pressure on the cable, the cord, or this sinker, so I'm trying to just be gentle. So we'll feed it through like so, and then we'll just go back in on ourselves again. So like this tail will feed through here. And again, no pressure on the handle because we don't want it to warp in this direction, but I just want to give the impression that this, and also to help with the stability of the sinker, because this is quite a lot of weight. Like there's 2 full sinkers here, and you know, some other sort of heavier items, so we want it to sort of we don't want it to sag, and I do want this to remain firm, so we don't, but we also don't want to pull the handle too tight. And then we can just tie it off. Also conscious of this snapping as well, because I know I had an issue the other day with part 2 where it sort of was a little bit snappy, like it snapped. So kind of coerce that. And now you won't notice this once it's all dry, but I might just add just a little bit of glue into the bow there, and that again will just help to help that knot stay tight and closed, and you won't really notice it. But of course it needs to be dry. Of course right now it looks terrible. Hello, it is the next day and the glue has held this knot together, or this little bow together beautifully, so that worked. And this sinker is steadfast in place. Now, I was thinking about overnight what else you could use here. You could use like, as I said, you could put some holes here, some extra holes, and attach your jump rings that way. You could also manipulate some paper clips if you don't have access to wire as such, to make some little jump rings to hold any extra little charms or dangles in place. And also just like a bulldog clip, like you can get some bulldog clips or just some paper, you know, like the squeezy clips that are a bit different and a bit unique. So you could just clip it on, and then, you know, if you wanted to make it semi-permanent, that's certainly a way that you could do it. But otherwise, this has fared up beautifully and is all in place, all tucked in, as is the inside panel. So the little bits here that weren't quite dry yesterday when I finished it off are now nice and dry, and everything is in place. And I still haven't decided whether to do some dry brushing in here. I may end up doing just a light dusting in the corners and around the edges with maybe some makeup. Have you ever tried that, using some eyeshadow palettes or neutral colored makeup just on the end of a really soft brush, just to sort of get into some of these corners and give it a little bit of aging? So I haven't decided if I'm going to do that or not. I'm just going to sit with it for a while and enjoy it as is. And I'm actually really chuffed with how this turned out. The tape is well and truly steadfast. It's not going anywhere, and this just feels like a really cute little collection of beach and nautical flotsam that has been gathered up over time, over adventures, and it's just really giving what I wanted. So what's next, I hear you ask? Well, we still have one panel flap to go, and I will be filling that with some 2D things, because obviously once this is all folded and tucked in, there isn't really room to put anything three-dimensional up here. It definitely needs to be some flat images, but I have been pouring through a lot of my angler books and other fishing guides to get some inspiration as to what we can put here. I think I would also really love to include some more personal touches to this art journal by way of some travel photos and maybe some other little just bits of paper ephemera for this little area here. We still have a little bit of room to put here in our little page binding area. And of course we need like a cover page. So that will all be hopefully in video 4, which will be the final part. I am going to go away and spend a little bit of time and just think about really how I want to finish off this journal. So I hope you've had a wonderful time doing a little bit of mixed media crafting with me today. I look forward to seeing you in part 4, which will be next week. In the meantime, I really hope you have a wonderful day ahead, and I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.